So we have been in this house for 10 years. I honestly can't even believe that it's been 10 years. It feels like I blinked my eyes and here we are, but here we are. When we first moved into this house, we had 2 kids under 2. They were just babies. This is the only house that they have ever known. This is the house that they have grown up in so far, that they each have celebrated birthdays and milestones, and this house has just brought us so much joy and warmth. And when we first moved in was when I was first starting to hear about blogs, and I really had no idea what they were or what was involved, but I loved the idea of being able to kind of have this online diary where I could share with friends and family who didn't live near us kind of the projects that we were doing and how we were going to fix this house up to make it ours. What I didn't expect was to find a community of people online who loved homes as much as I do, who loved the process as much as I do, who loved watching the transformation of our spaces, who loved following along in the projects. And it was really amazing to just be embraced by this community of other people who loved to decorate their homes and talk about life and go along in the journey with us. It was really my blog that gave me the confidence to step out in decorating. I had always just kind of shortchanged myself, if you will, of thinking I could even do something like that because I didn't go to college, I didn't have a degree, so who would take me seriously when it came to designing spaces? But I always had a love for it. I've always had a love for home and just wanting it to feel warm and inviting and the way home should be for people. My blog was really what gave me the courage to start decorating without the pressure or fear of failure, because it was just an online community. It was my home, it was our style. And through that process, I really was able to grow, not only as a designer, but also as a person, and trust myself, trust where God was leading me, walk in creative gifts that I didn't even think I had or had the potential to walk out in. And I have had some amazing opportunities just unfold and doors open that I would have never in a million years thought possible. This home has just fostered so much, not only good memories and warm moments that we cherish as a family, but growth. It's seen hard times, plenty of tears, lots of sweat, but we have, in the process of making this space a home that we love, it has really fostered an environment where for our family to grow in love. It's really hard to pick a favorite project that we've done in this house. So many spaces have been transformed. I really don't think we've left an inch of surface unscratched. One project in particular actually took a year of me asking, prodding, nudging, begging my husband to tackle. We were very kind of new, you could say, in our DIY skills. We had grown a little bit. There were some skills that we already had, but this particular skill involved a lot of work. And this was probably one of the first projects that we tackled where we realized just how much work is involved in home renovation. I was actually sitting in this very spot, and there was a spot directly in front of me. I call this wall in our kitchen the wall of doors. It drove me crazy. I looked at it over and over and over again. Every morning I would sit here with my coffee. Every time I'd sit down and have lunch, I looked at this wall that just felt like such an eyesore in our house. What wasn't there, what you do see now, is a plate rack wall that we built in. And I kept telling my husband, I want to do something here. I want to change it. I want to add something in here. But what you don't know is there was a chimney there with plaster that bulged out of the wall. And he just kept looking at me thinking, you're crazy, you're nuts. I'm not touching that wall. It's fine. Let's move on to something else. It's a perfectly good wall. And I just kept looking and going, but it's so boring. We need to add character. And so what it would involve to add character and the plate rack wall that you see now to that space would be taking a jackhammer to the chimney and tearing it out brick by brick. What nobody tells you who hasn't done that before is the amount of dust and debris that will now cover every surface in that room. from taking a jackhammer to brick. But finally one year he asked me for my birthday, what would you like for your birthday? I'd really like my plate rack wall in the kitchen, please. And that was the final nail in the coffin. So we started the demo on the plate rack wall in the kitchen, which you now see today, which is one of my favorite features. And it was just a simple solution for a wall that essentially has 3 different doors on it, but it helps just kind of mask and transition that into a space that feels typical to a house of this age, to a house of this era, but also goes with the charm that you see in farmhouse style. I'm like, there were some projects like that was one of those we didn't realize what we were getting into when we started it, and then it ended up being quite simple. Now, other ones that we've done, that was easy. So the remaining half of that chimney was in our bathroom, and when we gutted our bathroom, we had to take that out by 5-gallon buckets of brick up and down the stairs. I'll never forget the look on Jesse's face after about a year of it being up in our dining room when I asked him to take the chair rail molding off the wall that I had begged for, mind you. He looked at me like, I just put that up. It hasn't even been a year. Why do you want me to take that off the wall? It was because I really wanted to have a board and batten treatment on the walls that goes 3/4 of the way up, but I was just too scared at the time to even try it out. I didn't know if it would look right. I didn't know how it would feel in the space. And I just was not as comfortable with design choices as I am now. When I explained to him the process, he just shook his head and then went down to our basement and got his tools. And we began to pull the chair rail off the wall. And then the process of putting up the board and batten that you see now that adds so much charm and character and warmth to that space. The tricky part, however, with old homes though, is you can't always depend on a level for your boards to be straight. So he had started installing the horizontal board that goes at the top of the board and batten. And as I walked into the dining room, I was like, stop, you can't do that. And he was like, what? And he had the level resting on top. And I'm like, it's completely angled. It's not straight at all. And he was like, but my level says it's straight. But if you took a step back to the other part of our dining room, you could see it was clearly not level. And that is thanks to the charm of an old home. Sometimes you do just have to eyeball it. So we were able to put the level aside and begin placing the boards up about 3/4 of a way on the wall. And then just the simplicity of painting it white adds all of the charm and the warmth to the space that I wish I had had the courage to do in the beginning, but I'm so thankful, especially to Jesse, for trusting me and allowing us to do this process in our dining room to make it the space that you see now. It's hard to believe that this chapter is actually coming to an end of our family being in this home. This home has seen so many ups and downs, the good times and the bad, the tears and the laughter, and we are so grateful and blessed for all of it. We are so thankful that we got to spend 10 years of our lives growing our family, building our skills, and growing together as people in this home. I'm so excited to share this next season of our lives with you now on YouTube. So be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss a single thing.